Let me just check something here. Yaneek, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Good. Okay. Welcome to the 8-1 to the Business and Lifestyle Live. And this is a show which looks at presently things I'm doing is looking at some of the key factors and some of the key issues during COVID-19 while we're in quarantine, as some would say, lockdown. And it's an international thing. It is not just confined to the UK, to Spain, to Italy. It is confined to the whole world. And tonight's topic will be 5 key factors small businesses should be aware of during these uncertain times during COVID-19. And my guest, as you can see, lovely Yaneek Page, all the way from Jamaica, all the way come to the UK, entrepreneur, legal funding czar, TV producer, biz trainer, and writer. And I must say, that was just 10%, because I won't have time to go through all of that. And for those joining right now, from wherever you are, feel free to ask some questions, and and let's see what we can get on today within this period of time that we have. Yaneek, first of all, welcome to the show, and we have been trying to do this for about a few years now, I think.
Oh my goodness, yes. It takes, well, thank you so much. And of course, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody who is watching. It's kind of like it's so wonderful to be able to connect with you and with your audience. And yes, it took a while, but the saying that nothing happens before its time. So I guess
Yes,
it was just time.
yes. Now, first of all, before we go into this, how is Jamaica faring with the COVID-19? Because the figures are very low, but it was 3 and 4 and 5, and I understand it's now at 60. So are we looking at something going on there?
Well, it's now at 72.
Mm,
And I think the curve, if you were to plot the cases on a graph, I think the curve has been, you know, um, pretty unimpressive, which in terms of human toll, and the toll on the healthcare system, for us, that's a positive, right? We're not
yes,
seeing this huge spike in cases. I mean, we do have concerns, especially with the recent positive tests, 2 of them being uh, call center employees. So that is a little bit of cause for concern.
mm,
So on that front, I think Jamaica is faring not too badly. But don't forget that Jamaica, of course, is a small island of under 3 million people, and the lion's share of our industry is tourism.
yes,
And tourism, definitely over 30% of our economic activity, and that's completely shut down. And then added to that is that remittance is a big thing for us, and that is the money that, of course, those of the Jamaicans who live overseas
yes.
send back to their family, to their friends, to invest in the country. That's also taken a very sharp decline. So, and then added to that, we're seeing, the economy isn't, I mean, we aren't shut down, but what is happening is that we have restricted hours, restrictions on movement, restrictions on the types of business that can operate and how they operate. And that, of course, is continuing to have an effect in terms of economic contraction. So I think, as with the rest of the world, the concern is not just the human toll, but eventually it will be the financial and economic toll. But of course, life is what I think we would all agree is priority.
If I just sort of do a mini comparison between the UK and Jamaica. In the UK now, the government is offering a lot of money or whatever to persons who are, what should I say, registered in the tax system, are working like 80%.
Yes.
What is happening in Jamaica? Is there a buffer for
Yeah.
persons there?
So Jamaica just launched a program that is called the CARE program. It's interesting that you asked that question because I'm actually going to be writing an article about that soon, and I've asked a colleague of mine who has put in a request to actually track, just the processing, just so that it's helpful for the people that need that information to be able to know how do you apply and how soon that money is deposited into your account. So the CARE program offers supplement support, a little bit, some grants for people who have been adversely affected by COVID-19,
Yeah.
and it's specific to some sectors in terms of industry, But then it's widely available to people who are below a certain income level and have lost their jobs, as
Yeah.
well as small and micro businesses, and even some of the the really vulnerable operators like the hairdressers and barbers and so on. Those those micro business operators that have that type of business that you would see that significant fall. In some cases, the grant is up to 100,000 Jamaican dollars, which is let me see, just about, I think it'd be about £700.
Mm.
Don't quote me, I don't have a calculator, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Just under 800 US dollars. So the government has said that they are pleased to be in a position to be able to do this,
Yeah.
because this would be definitely one of the few times, if not the only time in Jamaica's history, that we've been in a financial position to be able to offer that kind of assistance. So I think we were on the rebound in terms of our economy, and the gains from that we are now using to apply some social buffers, and we just hope that there's no extension, that this crisis and the need in terms of that humanitarian
Yes.
outreach doesn't extend, beyond the breadth of what the government is able to do.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, one of the things that I wanted to do was to have like some key factors that persons can sort of look at, because people will have to go through things at this time. As you know,
Right.
people are rebranding, people are trying to find themselves, people are
Oh yeah.
isolating, so they have to, they got to do something. Yeah, some people
Yeah.
getting crazy, people doing all these different things. But in regards to small businesses, as the topic talks about um, five key factors small businesses should be aware of during these uncertain times. You mentioned something at one point when I was talking to you about people come first.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you break that
Yes.
down a bit? Like, yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I'm so happy that you're focused on small businesses. Thank you for doing
Yeah.
that. It demonstrates a depth of understanding of how critical small business operators are to
Yes.
the economic recovery of any country, and in particular Jamaica. So I think, when I say people come first, I think what a lot of business operators need to understand, and many of them already do, so is that whatever it takes to ensure the health and safety, and by extension public safety,
Yes.
of your all of your stakeholders, including of course your valued employees, team
Yes.
members, and your customers, that is priority number one. And the costs that are associated with that, unfortunately the losses that may be associated with that, that is really that is how your business needs to be framed, in terms of making sure that you are focused on health and safety. And what that means is that, there's some companies that and they they don't they for example, social distancing is really important,
Yes.
and making sure that your employees have the right protective gear, as well as you have the facilities to ensure that becomes a priority. You don't want to be running a business where you don't have the space to ensure social distancing, and yet you maintain opening hours, because
Yes.
what that does is that you are putting the public at risk, you're putting your customers at risk, you're putting yourself at risk, and it's just not the right thing to do. So, yes, there's an economic factor, but I think people need to understand that whatever results in the health and safety, and of course public health of your country, is what will benefit you in the long term, and that should be number one.
Right. Right. So therefore, the focus on the small businesses again, and then regarding the whole virus bit now, sets recovery, the pace,
Oh geez.
yeah, yeah, the whole pace and talent, because this is definitely what they call uncharted territories.
Oh yeah.
You know, when everybody knows I'm a Brexiter. One of the things I always talk about with Brexit was uncharted waters, is uncharted territories, is uncharted and new opportunities,
Yeah.
right? And looking at this one now regarding this timeline, do you see sort of any, what's a positive, anything, and what's the word for businesses out there? Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's so hard for us to actually talk about the positives when so many people are losing their lives
Yes,
and
yes,
so many people are struggling. So sometimes, you can't, I always want to be sensitive. I want to be, positive, but I also want to maintain some sensitivity for the people who are not having, a good time with this. And there are people who are literally struggling and they've lost family and friends. And to
yes,
those,
of
of
course.
course, condolences. But, when it comes to the timeline for this, people need to understand that the virus is going to set the timeline. And I have had more than 100 conversations in the past couple of weeks with small business owners. Initially, it was intended for those from Jamaica. What
Yeah,
happened was that when I offered this and I just put it online and I said, well, I'm going to offer some slots because, I am, of course, a certified business resilience manager. I have expertise in disaster risk management planning and business continuity planning and business resilience management generally. And I said, I know that there are people who need this expertise. I had more than 100 business owners contact
mm,
me and have meetings with them about what will happen after COVID-19. What
yes,
do they do in the coronavirus time? And I think the key point was that there is no timeline right now.
right,
The reports that we're seeing from organizations like McKinsey and Company estimate a return to normal travel by 2023, 2024, as in pre 2020 times. There are other estimates that are even more severe. What I will say is that when we look at the fact that this is a novel virus and we don't have a vaccine, we haven't tested a vaccine, and vaccines typically take a minimum of 18 months, 2 years
yes,
before we know that they're safe, because these are things that you're going to even have babies being vaccinated. What we know is that because of the fact that this is novel, it started in animals, right? Or it's we won't get
don't
into the
tell,
conspiracy
don't tell that,
theories. We'll
don't
just
tell,
say that, right? So we won't get
don't
into
tell
the
that to the, don't tell that to the
I
the conspiracy
know. So
theorists.
we're not going to get into the conspiracy
5G,
theories.
5G is the cause of it. 5G. Carry
So,
on.
but
I mean,
well,
facetious there, yeah.
one thing we know for sure is that our bodies have never seen this before, or
Yes,
healthcare experts have never seen this before, and because of that, we don't have immunity. And the implications of that is that as long as the virus is out there, we are going to see waves of this until we have immunity in the population. And it doesn't help that we are seeing now that people who should have recovered from this are actually in relapse. We're seeing that the WHO, that's the
yeah.
most recent bit of information, that they're investigating this. So what it means is that we are in for a long haul here. And unfortunately, there's no government that can set the timeline. It doesn't matter how powerful. There's none of us who can set a timeline. So I think it really is for us to manage our own expectations as consumers, as business owners, and just as the general public, that this is going to be, as you like, I love the way you put it, this is uncharted territory, and we have to
Yeah.
be patient and just kind of get into that mindset of we are prepared to be flexible.
It's interesting what you said about no government can actually give the sort of timeline because, as you know, Boris Johnson is out of hospital, and they had the briefing just a moment ago, and I believe it's this week we're supposed to talk about the lockdown. Should there be a brief? And they said no, nobody can actually make a decision on that because the worst thing is if you give that little breathing space, then it all gets bad again. But the most important thing, though, Yannick, is if this goes on for a very long time, businesses now will have to sort of, what should I say, looking at things like prepare to change their business model or how they
Oh yeah,
operate and all those sort of things. What and also,
yes,
and ladies and gentlemen, I must say that I'm actually on. I went onto your website, your page, and what I of course I do my little research before I go any further, and I saw the bit where you talk of meet with Yannick, and there's an interesting bit you have there. Let me tell you what it is. You know what it is, but I'll say what it is. Uh, Emergency business continuity planning,
yes.
right? But so I don't know if you can link that with this question about be prepared to change your business model, and that point there that you have on your
Yeah,
website.
absolutely. So, I mean, just to remind everybody, if you're just joining, I mean, the 2 points that we've discussed already, or five. The first one is that people come first, right?
Yes.
And the second one is that as a business owner, we have no control over the timeline. We have no control over when this is going to end. So, to get into that expectation, that we've got to be flexible. Then
Yeah.
that leads us to the third point of flexibility being extended to your business model. And,
Yeah.
I mean, a very simple way to look at a business model is really, how do you add value to your customers and allow them to receive that value and then to pay for that. So how do you actually do that? What's the value that you add? What are you doing that is unique to solve their problems,
Yes.
to fill a need, to fill a void, to make their lives easier? And then how does the customer pay you for that, right?
Yes.
And how do you ensure customer stickiness and longevity? And how do you make sure that, of course, the customer is satisfied and that you have them continuing to support and promote your business? And of course, an extended, what we call customer lifetime value. So when you look at some of those key elements of the business model that would ensure, of course, that customer satisfaction, creating operations that are, efficient, very productive, so that you can see the profitability that you need. When you look at all of those areas, you realize that what people had as essential a month ago, that has completely changed. What people needed 6 weeks ago is completely different from what they need
Yes.
now. What they
Yes.
will need towards the end of April will be very different from what they probably needed at the start of April. And
Yes.
so, understanding that because of this crisis, your customers are changing, it means that their incomes are likely changing, their outlook is changing, their needs are changing, and
Mm.
how it is that they can move around is also changing. Silver, and I think it goes without saying that if you are rigid in how your business is operating, you
Yes.
haven't made changes now, if you're not planning for drastic changes, you're going to be left behind, because you're not keeping up with the new needs and
Yes.
demands and the new realities of your customers. And it really does involve a lot of reflection on what's happening, and then of course some introspection on what you need to change and how can you serve them. But the very first question has to be, what do they need now, and
Yes.
how can I get that to them in a way that is safe, that of course is it maintains public health, and
Yes.
of course that allows you to have a little bit of profitability. I see a little bit, because there are very few industries now that are going to maintain the level of profitability that they had before. Very few,
Yes.
because
Yes.
people's incomes are drastically affected. And so because of that, I think for most companies, when it comes to business resilience, it's survival now that we're focused on.
Wow. Wow. And it's interesting what you mentioned that, because even like the media, sorry, the social media. Um, let's use an example. The churches at one point were very anti-social media, like calling it a tool of the devil. And some companies were anti-social media. But you see, everybody's recognizing that this is a new way, and the adoption is becoming so rich, so very
Yeah,
fast.
yeah.
You know?
So it's interesting, because I don't, Silver, and I know we've been following each other for many years,
Yes.
and you probably know I've been such a huge advocate of
You're my chauffeur in
remote work.
Jamaica. You're my chauffeur one time in Jamaica when I came. You carried me all over the place.
So, I mean, I have been advocating for remote work, for automation, for digital transformation for years. In fact, from in 2011, I was fortunate to have been selected for the United States State Department's Premier Leadership Program. And you can't apply for it. You have to be nominated, and then you have to be, the State Department has to do their checks, and then they approve the nomination. And the long and short of it is, the reason that they go through that is because I was exposed over the period of several weeks to the best of what's happening in the US in terms of entrepreneurship and small business development.
Yes.
And this, from 2011, I went to places where they had smart boards in classrooms. And in Jamaica, there are very few schools right now, even today, that they have smart boards, right?
Mm.
So that level of exposure to what was happening, how they were building their entrepreneurship ecosystem, how they were able to maximize, um, profitability and productivity while adding max value to customers. These
Yes.
were things that I was hoping that Jamaica and the rest of the world, because there are many other Caribbean countries that are in a similar position. I was hoping that they would capitalize on, right?
Mm.
Being able to use different applications to reduce that huge human capacity issue that we have, and then focus instead on being as lean as possible, and of course, being able to reach your customers through different automated channels.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it hasn't taken hold, and as you've said, the church is just one area, but there literally, I mean, this I can, the biggest thing for me that I've seen coming across working with businesses around the Caribbean and in the US and Canada, I mean all around the world, is that it is remarkable how resilient
Yes.
businesses in certain countries are, because of their economies and because they were already operating digitally. It is
Right.
remarkable because for them, there is no learning curve they have to go up. They were already engaging their customers in an online way. They already had channels for sales that were online. They were using up a lot of virtual capacity in terms of being able to serve clients, reach out to clients, engage clients. They already had databases documented. They were using what we call CRMs, customer
Yes.
relationship management systems, sophisticated sales software. We are nowhere there. And so, because of that, we are in such a challenging position, Silburn, because guess what happened? We are now trying to learn the technology and at the same time execute. And you know that sometimes it's not ideal, and that puts us at a disadvantage.
And that's the reason why you said digital is not the future; it is now.
Okay, so digital is now. I mean, so all of those who saw it as, well, okay, we can do this in the future. This is, you can't, because even if as your company you had some bumps going up that learning curve, your customers, the consumers, are now exposed to that.
Mm.
All the children's, all the children in
Absolutely.
schools, right? All the children. So I'm thinking, there are children all over the world who are now who are now doing homeschooling, things that we never thought were possible. They're actually having classes online via Zoom,
Mm.
via Blue Jeans, you name it. Via GoToWebinar. They're having all of these um, classes online that so when you look at the exposure, even for the youth, it's a win for us. It actually
Yeah.
is. You asked about the positives. It is one of those positives, which is that digital is now, it's going to force us to be more efficient, more productive, add more value, hopefully save some money, and hopefully live a better quality of life, because that was always the opportunity that we were missing out on.
So what we are waiting now for is COVID to just go out in business. Then it's do you see? I gave an example the other day that it is like I don't know where the plane is now. It's like things is like a plane is I don't know where the plane is. Is the plane being still in the hangar, closed down, or is somebody preparing some cleaning material to start going to the plane and start to clean it before it's ready to shoot off? Or what? Where are we? Where we?
I know. I think. Okay, so Silver, there are two things I want to say in response to that
Mm.
question. That's such a great question. I think the first thing is that if we need to watch closely those countries that have been battling this first. Of
Yes.
course, China is of course our best practice here, because they seem to have had the best handle, but their cases are going up, so they are seeing somewhat of a second wave. And I think this is where we have some concern, because we
Mm.
think that we're out of the hangar. The plane has
Yes.
been cleaned, we're out of the hangar, and we're about to take off. And then we realize that, oh no, we've got to go back.
Gotta go back.
We've got to go back because there's a problem, right? So that's a tricky one. I think we're not going to know until a few weeks from now,
Mm.
when countries start reopening, whether or not they see that second wave and they see that curve going back up. So that's a little scary. I think we all need to take precautions in those times. And then the second thing is that, I told you before that as a business resilience manager, I mean, for some clients and my larger US based clients, for example, I have had to be doing consulting, which required me to actually do a complete review of the history of recessions and depressions.
Yes.
And I can tell you that every major recession since World War One, the trajectory has been it takes longer for the world to recover.
Yes.
That's number one. And I mean, if from a minimum of 6 months to the most recent one, for some countries, the most advanced countries, 6, 7 years to recover. The
Wow.
UK, I think, in the last major recession, took 5 years to recover.
Yes.
By recover, it means to get to the point where they are hiring again, the way they were before the recession.
Mm.
And unfortunately, for the more vulnerable countries, it is taking longer.
Mm.
And Silburn, why that is of concern is because when you look at what is happening in that recovery, the
Yes.
people who were well off before are the ones who recover faster. Those who were at the poverty line, just above the poverty line, unfortunately have a hard time getting out of that.
Right. So it's like a cycle. They go back a cycle where they go right back to a particular point, isn't it?
Well, I think if you look at income inequality around the world and you match that against what has been happening with the recessions around the world, you will see that the income gap widens
Yes.
with these it's exacerbated by the recession. So it's not good news when you look at rich versus poor,
Yes.
because unfortunately the rich are in a position to capitalize, are able to be flexible, and the poor literally they lose their jobs and they go in debt and it takes them forever to get out. So it really does exacerbate the income inequality, and it really is something for us to look at and maybe to see if there's an
Yeah.
opportunity for us to change that.
Well, it was interesting. I was listening to Jamaica, whereby um, people were being told to go home, and I think it was Coronation Market. There was this guy saying, "Listen, social isolation and social distancing is for rich people. I can't isolate because we're living in houses with 5 persons, and we have to eat. We know we're not going to get any handout." And he was saying, if what the person said, what if you get coronavirus and die? He said, well, listen, we're not on this earth. Do you think that people are at a point, and that's in Jamaica, whereby they see the difference and the distinction, and they say, listen, this is not for me. Whatever happens, because they got to
Yeah,
eat.
I think there unfortunately we have a lot of people who are at the poverty line, below the poverty line, and
Mm.
for them it's either corona is going to kill them or they're going to starve to death. And some people tell you I would rather not starve to death.
Wow,
And it's
wow.
it's something that's even hard to repeat, but it is a reality that there are many people. And Sylvan, I don't know, I mean, I studied the statistics on Jamaica. I could go on and on, but you mentioned that there are some households with 4 and 5 people. Two very important points. The households,
But the important thing is that the 4 or 5 people are in 2 bedroom places, 1 bedroom. Because yeah, that's a
but
distinctive
yeah, yeah,
point.
yeah.
Yeah,
But I don't know if you know this, but the households with the largest number of children tend to be single female headed households. So
yes,
these households are headed by single women who are out there trying to care for 4 and 5 people in a household.
yes.
And they literally, I mean, these are the hairdressers that you're talking about,
Mm,
right? These are the nail techs that you're talking about. These are the market vendors that you're talking about. These are the small shopkeepers that you're talking about. These are the people who are out there literally hustling every single day because they have 4 and 5 people to feed. It's scary because the truth is, when you look at that anomaly, it means that, and even the data that we've seen, I know that a study that was commissioned recently indicated that women are having a harder time managing this crisis than men. I would say we unfortunately expected that because of the large number of people in their household. So
mm.
any reduction in income, or if they lose their jobs, it means so many mouths go unfed.
And one of the things happening in the UK, the recent, is that domestic violence has increased as well because of everybody's all crammed together now in the small space. But life after COVID, will it look very different? Life after COVID.
It'll be very, in recent history, 9/11 changed the world.
Yes,
And there was life before 9/11, and then there's life after 9/11. And I suspect that life after coronavirus will not be the same. It's going to
yes,
be a different world that we're going to look at. It's going to be a different way of life. And I think one of the things that we can do to start planning is what will that life after COVID look like? Okay.
yes,
I
yes,
mean, there are people who believe that you may be required to be vaccinated before you even go into other countries. You don't just come with your passport or a visa, right? You need
yes.
to also show that you're vaccinated. We expect that travel will not be the same, right? We expect that the way that we look at how we wash our hands, sanitize, what we do. I think I don't know about you, but I'm going to be washing my hands for 20 seconds, a lot longer. I mean, I think for
I
the
mean,
rest of my
singing happy
life.
birthday 3 times. Singing happy birthday 3 times then.
Yeah. Right, I think so. I mean, I was always the person who would, some quick sanitizer, always wash my hands. Now I'm different already. So I know that my spend on those cleaning products will change.
Yes,
I
yes,
know that the way that I approach travel will change. I know that the way I travel and eat will change. I mean, I
yes.
think there are many things that will happen after this, and the most important thing, as you've said, is that life after COVID will not look the way it did
Right.
before 2020.
And you're right about the whole health factor because, I mean, in the UK, we get a small amount of time before we can get some sun, and we need a vitamin D. And people are saying, stay inside. And everybody's one guy was saying, listen, people need their vitamin D. They got to go outside. So people walking around the neighborhood, and we see our friends, and we're going to walk on the other side of the road. So,
Yeah,
that's why I said it is physical distancing because people are more actually socially getting together as
yeah,
much as possible. I got a question here for someone that said, and he said, would love to hear your views on the likely behavioral changes to expect from consumers after coronavirus. I believe you touched on that already. It will surely affect what and how we buy, at least for a few months after the lockdown. Should we expect a spike in alcohol purchase or a dip in luxury item purchases, for instance, because it could really guide the hustlers and the small business on the type of products to stock up on in order to meet likely demands or what products to cut back on to avoid sales slump?
yeah. That's a great question. I think
Hmm.
I can tell you from my research on recessions and depressions, people tend to buy two things a lot more than they used to.
Yes.
One of those is chocolate or sweets, anything that is, what you call guilt foods. People tend to smoke more than they used to.
Yes.
And it's a coping mechanism. So those who, and I suspect that people who are in CBD, for example,
Yes.
CBD oils, for example. You may, when people have some room, you may see some bumps there, and then definitely alcohol tends to spike during and after. And the reason for that again is that it is one of those coping mechanisms that people
Right.
use. I'm not, there's no judgment here. I'm just saying that expect that these sin things, things that the governments have typically imposed sin taxes on, so sugars, cigarettes, alcohol, those tend to be the things that people actually use a lot of in previous recessions. Again, we've never seen anything like COVID-19. None of us who are here know anything about the Spanish flu and what that was like outside of what we've read.
Yes.
But I can tell you that, people were really focused a lot on cleaning, health, safety, and those things, and a lot
Yes.
buying more of necessity foods that are basic than
Yes.
they ever were before. So crackers, breads, just those things that we would somewhat define as cheap fuel, as in cheap ways to fuel your body. Expect that to be on something that consumers continue to spend on.
Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you note that we got to work out what is it that is more in in demand as
Yeah.
much as possible,
Yes.
and determine how you actually stock up. Because, as you rightly say, Yannick, in every circumstance, as you rightly said, we're not looking down or diminishing all the
No.
death of people. I think the UK figure is gone, but in the meantime, we've got to look at how we survive, isn't it? It's a survival thing at the same
It
time.
is.
The
It is.
survival both
It
ways.
is. It is. That word that you just used is at the core of everything that we talk about when it comes to disaster recovery, risk management, business resilience, and continuity. It's about how do we survive to move ourselves out of the crisis.
Yes, yes. All right. Well, Yannick, I want to thank you so much for coming on. And before we're going to, and the last word, and of course, after you give the last word, all people can, I mean, everybody can reach out to you. But if you want to say anything further, but what is the last word you would want to say, or encouraging people
Yeah.
at this time?
Yeah. The last word is take care of you. You
Yes,
know. If whether or not there's life after COVID, depends on how you treat yourself, how
yes,
you treat others. So be kind, take care of you, and and it's going to be okay. We're going to be able to manage this.
Right, fantastic. And how can people reach you? If they want to reach
Oh,
out to you?
geez. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on every social media
Yeah,
platform. At YANEEK Page is the easiest way to reach me. And if there's any way I can support anyone, I'd be happy to help if I can.
yes, and Yannick will always at many times you'll see her doing her Facebook, no, actually Instagram live.
Yeah, I do Instagram Live, Facebook
Yeah,
Live. I'm not a fan like you are. I really am not. The irony of it, right? I mean, how does a TV producer, creator, host not like doing them? You know why, Silburn. It
yeah,
takes so much effort. But of course, I will be doing more, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. And thank you so much, Silburn. And I wish for you and your family all the
yeah.
best in this time.
And likewise, thank you as well, Yannick, and have a good one. And as you said to me, Silver, well, give me so much work over the holiday period. That was us on our case. It's holiday,
Yes,
Silver.
that's Silburn. That was our secret. Goodbye.
Listen, have a good one, and thank you so
You
much.
too.
Okay, bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Thank you, Yannick. Cheers. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for coming on, and thank you so much for Yannick Page for joining us today. And the next show, well, before I do that, it was very interesting as how she actually touched on the different area where she talked about people coming first. Um, and let me just make sure I see, make sure I do something here. Yes, yes, that's correct. I think the last time I was doing a summing up, it was completely muted. I had to do a separate one for that. The virus setting the recovery pace and timeline. We agreed, and it is very obvious that no one actually can set the recovery pace really and the timeline now because of where we are with COVID. Many countries are testing it. Some of them are actually relaxing it. Some of them are making it a bit more stringent, just to make sure that we don't have a relapse. And so therefore, businesses will do affect by that. We talked about changing your business model. That is another thing, changing the business model. How do you navigate through this at this time, which is very crucial, and many persons will have to adapt with that. Digital is no longer the future, what Yannick said. It is now. Remember to talk about in the future. We're going to do that in the future. Now it is now. So you got to get into it now. It is not about then. It is about now, right? And finally, will there be life after COVID? Um, it will look different, but life will go on. And one of the key things that she tapped on in the last was what are some of the tools, sorry, what are some of the products that people are buying at this time? You've got to look at it. They talk about chocolate, I think it's mentioned alcohol, and and sweets and different ways and different products that people normally buy at this time. So those are in small business, maybe um, informal commercial we call it higglers or so. We have to start to think about how they actually buy products in order to generate an income. Because guess what? As we discussed and as we agreed, life must goes on because many people are not in a position whereby they will be getting anything from government because they're not on the books or so. And I mean, even the UK, many people understate their when they do their filing tax return. So therefore, there's going to have a fallout with that. I was speaking to an accountant the other day when he said with people under give a less thing based on their estimate. So without a doubt, I want to thank you so much. And this Wednesday, all being well, I should have Miss V Roberts, PR and Guru, um, branding star. We look at about maintaining the momentum, and she'll be on at 8 o'clock this Wednesday. And Wednesday will be the 15th as well. Okay, so thank you very much and have a good evening. And remember to like and subscribe. I've been told, remember to say like and subscribe to this so you don't miss it anymore. We're going to keep the momentum on the YouTube channel, and as well it will be posted on the Facebook as well. Okay, thank you much and enjoy your Easter. Have a wonderful Easter.